welcome to the elevator pitch, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, our guest is Dion Dawson, founder of Dion's Chicago Dreams. And one of the most impactful and important and growing nonprofits in the city, and not only in the city, but in the country. So, Dion, welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dion. So, look, first of all, I just learned something amazing about you.
Yeah.
And this is why I love talking to people, because you learn something every time you talk to them. Right. And so you're, I knew that you were enlisted. You were, I knew that you were in the services. You were in the Navy.
Yep,
right?
That's correct.
But I didn't know that your special sauce in the Navy was communications.
Absolutely.
You're a mass communications specialist
Absolutely.
because this man he's got pictures with presidents, with mayors, with governors, with Ellen. He's on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about where you get your energy from, and who you are. Give us a little bit about give us a little background on you.
Well, I think the good thing about it is I would say that there is luck involved, in that the market went toward my skill set, and so if this was 20 years before, the premium for a comms guy is not as high. You know what I mean?
Right.
But my energy comes from being able to have perspective, and so I've going from living on the south side of Chicago, being homeless, to going away in the military and kind of growing up a little bit, to then coming back and being homeless as an adult, to then going from job to job, leaving the military as an award-winning journalist, but not having any job offers in Chicago because high-level veterans very rarely come back to the Midwest. They normally stay in the DMV area or near a military installation.
Because people understand it better, because you were an ex-military, there's just not as many opportunities here.
Right, and exactly. And not to mention, it translates well. You know what I mean? So, like, you can leave the armed forces and find a similar position on the base and kind of set that up. Mine was a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so, just being able to see a lot of different things, and honestly, I tell people the org started when I was 30.
Right.
And so, that's when I feel like my life started. And so to have 30 years of practice, to then be able to ask yourself, hey, what are you gonna do now that you have your shot? And because I know what it felt like to not have it, my energy just comes from, and excitement comes from just being able to do it.
Well, you put all that time in with the 30 years of history and learning. So you provided 400,000 meals in the past 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yet the need grows. How do you remain optimistic that you're making a difference and that widespread gains can be achieved?
Because in order to be successful, and we've heard this countless amounts of different ways, but you have to have this unmovable belief that you can do it.
Right.
And so I would argue that the optimism is not tied to fact at all.
Right.
That optimism is tied to what you think is possible.
Right. Okay.
We're not using fact when we say like, hey, I can go from no money and no sales to a multi-million-dollar company.
Right.
You have nothing to show them that that's possible, and yet you believe it.
Right.
And so with the need, I think the bigger thing is making sure that you are committed to creating the model and not just being reactive to the problem. And I think my optimism is anchored in the fact that I know that this is not really about Dion having to be physically in every room or in every delivery, but really taking a step back, looking at how we can innovate the space and also be better stewards of how philanthropy and capitalism plays with each other.
So food security is a symptom, not the disease, right? So how do we fix the chronic issues that lead to some of these leads to self-sufficiency and being able to feed yourself?
Well, I think it all goes back to kind of where I landed, which is wealth building. I think that, we have to be able to have people provide for themselves, have job opportunities, have career opportunities to ultimately bring wealth back into areas that are plagued by food insecurity, food deserts, food swamps, food apartheid. And so the reason why we've been successful, I tell people a lot of the rooms that I'm in, I'm not here because I'm a good community leader. I'm here because I'm a good businessman.
Right.
And I've understood that in order for us to solve these issues, food security will only come when there's a commitment to job creation all around.
Right.
And so even when you look at philanthropy and food distribution, a lot of leaders in food in philanthropy don't know the market cap in their state.
Right.
So how can we say we're trying to do this, be good at it, and change this system when you don't even know how much money is coming? So for example, $400 million a year comes into the state of Illinois.
Right.
Of that money, 96% goes to 4 white-led food banks in the Feeding America network.
One of them just had a big award ceremony the other night,
yeah.
right?
So you're talking about the Northern Illinois Food Bank, Greater Chicago Food Depository, Western Illinois Food Bank, and Midwest.
Okay.
So if you have all of this money going into these systems without the job creation coming back out. So for example, if we've at Dion Chicago Dream, we have 49 employees making at least $20 an hour.
By the way, you've got 49 employees in Inglewood, right? Or
Yes, from the area. Yep,
from the area.
Yeah,
as opposed to. No, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
But I've visited a couple of these other warehouses, and they're in much different neighborhoods, much different situations, much different constituencies, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so from there, thinking about how we've grown from no money in 2020 to last year, a little bit under $7 million in revenue.
Okay.
Never missed a payroll, never have no debt, and more than 1.5 million went back to the community in the form of wages. And so when you talk about how do we get over the hump to really putting a dent in the problem, it's really taking a step back and acknowledging that the way that this system was built was not meant to fight food insecurity.
Right.
It was meant to fight hunger.
Right.
And so when we think about separating hunger from food insecurity, just by the definition.
What's the difference between hunger and food?
Hunger is the feeling of being hungry, but food insecurity is the lack of consistent access to healthy options.
Right.
So by the definition, Dion Chicago Dream is providing access through our delivery, consistency, and how often we do it, which is weekly.
Right.
We have the quality. And so just by that definition alone, a lot of the things that is viewed as food insecurity response is not.
Right.
And so before we even talk about getting more resources, we have to take a step back and look at, okay, what are we doing with the 400 million?
Right.
And my job right now is to not say, hey, we need 800 million.
Right.
My job is to say, hey, no, let's look at that 400 million and let's talk to those people who have been donating and meaning well.
Right.
But have not been asking the right questions. The beautiful thing about what my work has allowed me to do is to really look at it from a national and a global scale. And so I'll say this, Chicago, even as political and as divided as it can be, I would say just from the creativity, the various scales of programs, and the leaders alone in food, we'd probably be like a 6 or 7 compared to the rest of the country.
Right.
The only issue is that we all have not agreed on what we all want to accept to be true.
Right.
And so when there's no universal definition and universal acceptance, then everyone is starting from different starting points. You know what I mean? So I think, like I tell people when we talk about food as medicine, I say, well, listen, you can't stabilize the food as medicine market without stabilizing the food system.
Right.
And so I just think that, we could have been a 9 if we actually created these to be puzzle pieces as opposed to just like freestanding operations on their own.
When you say puzzle pieces, would it be like all working together under the same...
being able to come together if necessary.
Yeah, right.
And that's just not the case right now.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a consolidation of power, which we're seeing happen on a federal level, right? And the pros and cons to that. So,
growing up, I love that it never clicked that I was homeless. You know what I mean? Even when we stayed with people, even the craziest circumstances, I never lost my joy. I always knew I was special. I knew it.
Right.
Like you just, no matter if the environment does not confirm it, you know when you're just different. Right. And so what I loved about being a kid is my thing was school. And it wasn't even hey, I had straight A's or anything like that, because it was far from it.
Right.
But I knew that whenever the lines are set, I'm a dog.
Right.
And that and all throughout school, being valedictorian in 8th grade while being homeless.
Right. Okay.
Like I was still like got a 27 on the ACT. Right. You know what I mean? Couldn't go to college because we were still homeless. So I went to Chicago State for a couple weeks. Had to drop out because I didn't have any bus fare to get there. Went to work at FedEx, and it's funny because when I started working at FedEx overnights, I started seeing what I could do. And it was at FedEx, okay, I'm unloading trucks, and everybody hates it.
Right.
All I did was cut my brain off. Back then, this is 2008, we couldn't have any phones in the building.
Okay.
So all I did was just start singing and rapping songs that I could remember.
Right.
And memorize them.
Okay.
And literally, you would just hear me when you came on the wing, rapping real loud, building my wall.
What was your song? Give me one of your songs.
It was easy, Lil Wayne and Millie.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so just doing that, it's cold in the truck. And I got so good at it that I got promoted 3 times in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Now, the funny thing is I had told nobody that I went to the recruiter's office. I was leaving in 6 months. Right. So I got promoted 3 times in that 6 month span. And I had to ask myself, am I leaving? And the only reason I went to the recruiter's office for the Navy was because I said, if after 6 months after graduating, I'm not happy, I'm leaving.
Right.
And that was the first time in my life I kept my word to myself. And so no matter where I was with FedEx, I told them, they were like, you're doing a great job here, you should stay. I left.
Because you were unhappy?
Not necessarily unhappy, but with everything that I've been exposed to, happiness was more complicated. When you ask a child that has seen very little, are you happy? It's in relation to this thing. Right. But with adults, when we say, are we happy? What's the first thing we do? We think of all of the different areas. Right. And so by that time, I had experienced so much, happiness wasn't that simple. Right. Happiness for me could have been having enough bus fare just to get to Chicago State. Right. But I didn't. Right. And so at that moment,
where were you living at that time?
We were living with people in somebody else's house. Me and my mom staying on a couch. Right. My brothers were too old to stay with us, so they were staying with friends. Okay. And it was just me knowing that, okay, where does this lead? It doesn't get me off of the couch. Right. And so I left. I was gone for 6 years, deployed, did all of it.
Was that a hard decision for you, leaving your mom, leaving your brothers, going to the Navy? Because
it was hard for them to see me leave. Okay. It wasn't hard for me. Right. Did I want to leave? Necessarily no, but I think that looking back, there was a part of me that knew I had to. Right. There was nothing I liked about it. Right. You know what I mean? There was nothing I liked. It wasn't. There isn't this, love of being in the military because when you think about the military, there's always this tension there for me, because up until I was 30, I was a failure because of Inglewood. Right. And then as soon as I became what people deem as successful or having some success, they say it's because of the military. I make it a point to say, hey, I'm a success because of Inglewood.
So, this is really interesting because you've gone from 0 to 7 million in a relatively short period of time. Yeah. You're a media darling, right?
I'm trying.
And it's like right now it's the cult of Dion's Chicago dream, right? It's you're the guy, right? So, and you talk about the 49 people that you've employed. What are you doing to build this organization to grow beyond yourself?
Oh, it's already grown. Oh, no, listen, I'll tell you this. When you talk to other leaders and you visit their company, or you think about acquiring them, right? You can tell how comfortable a leader is with their value by the talent they have around them.
Right. Okay, that's 100% true.
And so for me, I am completely addicted to building out the dream team. So the average,
I like the dream team.
The average nonprofit executive, when they're going and they're growing from nothing to 1 million or 5 million, they're not looking for other dogs. Right. You know what I mean? They want somebody to do the job.
Right.
Oh no, we got hyenas over here. This is different. You know what I mean? I tell people when they meet me, I say, man, you're gonna love me until you meet my vice president, Danielle.
Right.
I believe in my team more than I believe in myself.
Right.
This is not a monolith. My vice president Danielle is amazing to the letter. My CFO Robert Jones is a dog and taught me about finances, which is why we've grown and at least double in size year over year.
Right.
My chief of growth, not chief of development, Jeff Benzino, taught me about not only crafting the narrative, but really breaking down application processes. And so when we talk about Dion Chicago Dream, this is not me and just people on the front line.
Last question. We're in the elevator.
Yep.
You know the elevator pitch. You get in there with somebody, and you got a short period of time to state your case as to who you are. Who is Dion?
I am a dreamer and a guy that has a flair and a knack for feeding people.
Boom. That's it.